Coming up on the 2014 FIFA World Cup magazine, the sights and sounds of Rio de Janeiro. We'll look back at the preliminary draw and take in some of the early qualifying games. And we'll explore the many facets of Flamengo, Brazil's most popular club. The FIFA World Cup, football's greatest prize. 19 tournaments, 8 different winners, memories galore. In a little under 3 years from now, Brazil will host its second FIFA World Cup. Whilst 13 teams contested 22 matches in just 6 host cities back in 1950, in 2014, 32 nations will enter the final tournament, with the 64 matches being played at 12 different venues across this vast country. Among those hoping to secure football's greatest prize will be at least 3 teams from CONCACAF, 4 or 5 from South America, 13 from Europe, 5 from Africa, and a minimum of 4 from Asia. Oceania may also be represented, although a playoff with a CONCACAF nation will have to be negotiated first. There will also be a playoff between the 5th-ranked nations in Asia and South America. A long journey ahead then, and our odyssey begins in Rio de Janeiro, the city where the 20th FIFA World Cup will end on July 13th, 2014. It may only be 15 months since Spain celebrated in Soccer City with those 6 kilograms of solid gold, but around the world, qualifying is already underway for the 2014 FIFA World Cup. By the time the great and the good of world football assembled in Rio de Janeiro for the preliminary draw in late July, 56 qualifying ties had already taken place, in locations as diverse as Aruba, Mongolia, and for the first time in 77 years, Palestine. But it all began in Trinidad, where Dion Macaulay scored the qualifying tournament's opening goal for Belize against Montserrat in the first round of qualifying in the CONCACAF region. With a little help from their opponents, Belize went on to win 5-2 on the night, and eventually 8-3 on aggregate. And at the preliminary draw in Rio, Belize were rewarded with a place in the region's Group E in round 2, alongside Grenada, Guatemala, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Their first 4 games yielded just 3 points though, and further progress is sadly now beyond them. Chinese Taipei, here in blue, was one of 8 teams to bow out of the competition in Asia's first round of qualifying, but they certainly gave a good account of themselves. In the second leg of their tie against Malaysia, Chinese Taipei twice came from behind to secure a 3-2 victory, but were eliminated on the away goals rule, having lost the first leg in Malaysia by 2-1. The Malaysians fell to Singapore in the region's second round, which also featured the tie between Palestine and Thailand, the second leg of which was played in Al Ram. Thailand had won the first leg 1-0, but Murad Elian's early strike levelled things up. Elian's second, on the stroke of full time, had the Palestinians 2-1 ahead on the night. But Datsakorn Thonglau's equaliser confirmed Thailand's progress to round 3, where they're currently sitting second behind Australia, in a group which also features Oman and Saudi Arabia. And here's a look at the other third-round groupings in Asia. Jordan have started strongly in Group A, as have Iraq under their new coach, Zico. The top 2 nations in each section will progress to round 4, at which stage the 10 nations will be divided into 2 groups of 5. The top 2 in each will then qualify for Brazil. Staging an event like the preliminary draw is no easy task, and the polished presentation enjoyed by the many millions watching on television around the world was all made possible by months of planning and a well-drilled operation behind the scenes. Back to the draw itself, and in the European section, the highlight was undoubtedly the grouping of two of the continent's traditional heavyweights, 1998 World Cup winners France and the current holders of the famous trophy, Spain.
It's a difficult group. I don't think you ever get easy draws where the World Cup is concerned. It'll be sorted out on the pitch. But Spain, of course, are the big favourites. That's obvious.
Whilst the lineup for the group stages is yet to be finalised in Africa and Oceania, in South America, the qualifying campaign got underway in October. Uruguay were the pick of the region's teams in South Africa in 2010, and the Celeste began their pursuit of a place in Brazil with a resounding 4-2 victory over Bolivia. It was no surprise to see Luis Suarez and Edinson Cavani amongst the goalscorers for Uruguay, but it was their captain, Diego Lugano, who grabbed the headlines with 2 goals on a wet but winning night for the 2-time world champions, who drew their second match 1-1 in Paraguay. Argentina sits second behind Uruguay in the 9-team table. Under new coach Alex Sabella, and with Lionel Messi wearing the captain's armband, Argentina had thrashed Chile 4-1 in their opening fixture. But 4 days later, in Venezuela, Fernando Amorebieta scored the only goal of the game to earn the Vino Tinto, their first ever qualifying victory over Argentina. The result has ramped up expectations locally that this could be the campaign in which Venezuela finally qualify for the FIFA World Cup. Ecuador and Colombia, the latter seen here defeating Bolivia 2-1, occupy the other 2 qualifying berths, whilst Brazil, who've qualified as hosts, began their preparations with friendly wins in Costa Rica and Mexico.
We have to make the most of the situation we find ourselves in. We can afford to take more risks. The players are playing for a place in what will be a new squad. It's all good. We have to make sure we select some strong opponents so that we can really test this new group of players, who will hopefully go on to form our new national team.
Time now to delve into the archives and relive a moment or two from the 4th FIFA World Cup, which was held in Brazil in June and July of 1950. Italy, who'd won the previous tournament 12 years earlier, arrived from Europe by boat and were soon relieved of the Jules Rimet trophy at a ceremony on the dockside. The Italians were joined in Brazil by 5 other European nations, 5 teams from South America, plus Mexico and the United States. As for the Mexicans, they were in party mood ahead of their first fixture, the tournament's opening game against Brazil, which would be played in a cavernous new stadium dubbed Maracana. Purpose-built for the 1950 tournament, the arena was still some way short of completion when the tournament got underway on June 24th. Indeed, in the hours leading up to kickoff, the army of workers was still busy with the paint pots, screwdrivers, and dust cloths. A hugely expectant crowd of over 80,000 descended on Maracana for Brazil's meeting with Mexico, which the tournament hosts were certainly expected to win. Brazil were resplendent in their then customary white shirts with blue trim, a combination that would soon be replaced by the now familiar yellow and green, as a result of the outcome of the 1950 tournament, more of which in the coming months. Against Mexico, Brazil were dominant throughout, scoring 4 unanswered goals, including 2 from Ademir, who would end the tournament as its leading scorer. The 4-0 scoreline heightened a nation's expectations, which would be shattered comprehensively just a few weeks later. We'll have more memories from 1950 on the next edition of the 2014 FIFA World Cup magazine. Sadly, the days when the mighty Maracana attracted crowds approaching 200,000, which was the case for the final game of the 1950 FIFA World Cup, are long gone. In fact, gone are the days of the Estadio Jornalista Mario Filho to give the stadium its proper name, hosting any football at all, for the time being at least. This was how the famous old stadium looked in July 2011, at the time of the preliminary draw.
Initially, the plan did not involve demolishing the stadium, but once the work started, it became clear we'd have to knock down some of the stands, particularly the lower tier. And that's when we realized that the stadium was in a much worse state than either myself or the engineers had originally thought.
So, Ícaro Moreno, as the man in charge, took the decision to tear down much of the existing structure, including the roof. A move that has met with the disapproval of many, among them a man who made his name at Maracana.
I
went to Maracana soon after they started pulling it apart. At first I was reluctant to go, but I went there to see a friend who works next door. When I saw the state it was in, it really hurt. I didn't want to see the stadium like that, although I did realize that it was a necessary move. It's hard for me to accept, as I spent most of my life there. At the same time, I understand that it is necessary because Maracana was falling apart and it needed to be renovated.
The stadium evokes a lot of passion. People have cried when talking to me about the roof in particular. Why? Because they remember standing underneath it with their fathers. It's nice that people are so passionate.
Criticism continues to come Moreno's way, but the work that has started will see the famous old venue transformed into an ultra-modern 75,000 capacity stadium. And the new Maracana, which will host 7 matches in 2014, will boast a new roof, one which will ensure that all spectators are under cover. There will also be the now customary concession stands, VIP areas, and plush executive boxes. Football, of course, will be central to Maracana's future, but like many big arenas around the world, it will also stage concerts and other sporting events. And the hope is it will be ready in time to host matches at the 2013 FIFA Confederations Cup.
If the World Cup was our target, I would be able to sleep peacefully at night. We face a huge challenge, but it will be ready. We're working hard. We're already working in 2 shifts, and we will continue to do so. We could even do more if necessary. We already have about 2,000 men on site. We're bringing in equipment and systems to speed us up. I've no doubt it will be ready for the Confederations Cup.
Work has begun at all 12 of the stadia that will stage matches at the 20th FIFA World Cup, with many expected to be completed by the end of 2012. Maracana may take a little longer than that, but when ready, it'll again be the jewel in the crown of Brazilian football.
If you're coming to Rio de Janeiro for the World Cup, you must visit Copacabana Beach, Sugarloaf Mountain, and Christ the Redeemer.
For 80 years now, Christ the Redeemer has been a prominent feature on the Rio skyline. Standing almost 40 meters tall and 30 meters wide, the 635-ton statue is a powerful symbol of Christianity in a country where religion still plays a central role in many people's lives. Situated atop the Corcovado mountain in the Tijuca National Park, the statue is made of reinforced concrete and sandstone. It took 9 years to construct and was opened to the public on October 12, 1931.
Christ is synonymous with tolerance, love and solidarity, and the people in Rio are loving, supportive and tolerant. For that reason, on the 80th anniversary of Christ the Redeemer, we want to reassure people that when the World Cup begins, we will be like our very own Christ.
The statue's image is everywhere, it seems. From the Copacabana to the upmarket boutiques that line Brazil's most famous beach. Fashion designer Gilson Martins grew up in the shadow of the Corcovado, and both his work and his bank balance have been heavily influenced by the statue which dominates the city.
He was always there with open arms when we woke up in the morning. So when I started designing bags, I began working with the landmarks associated with the city, with various landmarks, but mainly with the Christ. Naturally, it has a religious connotation, but here in Rio, it has transcended that meaning and has become a tourist attraction in its own right.
No one knows the Christ better than Father Omar Rapos. He works in the small chapel at the base of the statue, which was built to celebrate the monument's 75th anniversary.
What we have here are everyday people from all corners of the globe. They come to visit the statue, they take pictures, make their wishes and proclaim their faith. So it's a marvelous atmosphere, one in which different cultures collide, where we can experience the true meaning of life, which is love.
A place of pilgrimage for some and a must-see tourist destination for others, Christ the Redeemer attracts well over 1 million visitors each year. Those numbers are sure to swell come 2014, when views such as these from the Corcovado are set to be captured on many a camera and mobile phone.
Rio is so beautiful, and the monument of Christ the Redeemer embraces it all. When you come up here, you can share Christ's view of the city, a view that enchants. People often leave here quite emotional because of its great beauty.
I have to confess that I thought it would be a little bigger, but it's as beautiful, if not more beautiful, than all the pictures I've seen.
I haven't gone up yet, but I'm very impressed just looking at it from down here. And when it's illuminated at night, it's something quite incredible.
Of the 4 big football clubs in Rio de Janeiro, Flamengo can justifiably claim to be the most successful and best supported of the illustrious quartet. It also includes Vasco, Botafogo and Fluminense.
We have fanatical supporters. Wherever we play, it feels like we're at home.
Sometimes they have to scratch and save just to come to the stadium and watch their team. That's what Flamengo means to them. It's an institution.
I'm so proud to wear the shirt.
A club of the masses it may have become, but when it was formed as a rowing club back in 1895, Flamengo was very much the preserve of the area's elite. As with a number of clubs in Rio at the time, Flamengo soon branched out into other sports, eventually adopting football as late as 1911, after disaffected Fluminense players decided to jump ship. 100 years, 6 national titles and a Copa Libertadores triumph later, Flamengo's footballers can boast an estimated 35 million fans worldwide. They include Patricia Amorim, the club's female president, which is something of a first in Brazil. A former Olympic swimmer, Amorim was elected to the post in 2009, and despite some difficult moments in recent times, she remains committed to what is a hugely significant role.
It's an important position, as this is the most popular club in Brazil. I wouldn't say that it's been easy, as I get the sense that not everyone has confidence in me, because I'm a woman. But I can handle that, as I know I'm a good administrator.
At first, it was a little bit strange and awkward having a female president, as women have a different point of view. If we had a man as president, though, he would probably solve a problem and create another one at the same time. A woman, with her delicate nature, can often solve a serious problem with just a few
Amorim's presidency has already yielded silverware, with Flamengo's youngsters picking up trophies in youth tournaments and the senior side remaining unbeaten as they secured a 32nd Rio State Championship earlier this year. The national championship is a much tougher proposition. Traditionally, it's a very open competition, with Flamengo one of the 7 clubs to have won the title in the last 10 seasons. This year, after 30 of the 38 games, just 6 points separated the top 6, with Flamengo among them in 4th.
I've always said that we have a championship in Brazil with 12 big clubs, all of which can win the title. Not even the Champions League, which is Europe's top competition, has 12 possible winners. That shows just how competitive Brazilian football is.
Luxemburgo, a former national team coach, has undergone something of a renaissance of late, as has his captain, Ronaldinho Gaucho, whose arrival from Milan in January was seen as a gamble on the part of the president. His subsequent return to the national team would seem to have proved her right.
Ronaldinho was a risky move, but it was necessary, because Flamengo was having a very difficult year. So yes, it was a risk. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and will probably make many more, but I think I've been pardoned with the arrival of Ronaldinho. He's fantastic. He's helped us rediscover the pleasure of watching a good football match.
Not just content with transforming the football team, Amorim has been working to improve facilities throughout the club, with a view to attracting a national team here for the duration of the World Cup. It's a tournament the entire nation is looking forward to, and one they hope will help the domestic game rival the top leagues in Europe.
Brazilian football is already benefiting. We've managed to repatriate some great players, which has raised the profile once again. People will be talking about Brazil until 2014. They'll be talking about Rio de Janeiro, about Brazilian football, about Carioca football. So football is already benefiting.
Among the many star names to appear at the preliminary draw in July was Rio native Ivan Lins. The Latin Grammy Award-winning composer teamed up with Ana Carolina to perform Madalena, a song from his 1970 album, Agora.
My music, as a whole, has its roots in my hometown, Rio de Janeiro. It's a city that was the capital of the Republic, and it remains the cultural capital of Brazil. Back in that day when cultural news reached Brazil from other countries, it arrived first in Rio. I was part of that generation and was one of those to receive the information firsthand.
Lins spent part of his childhood in the United States, but has lived most of his life in Rio de Janeiro, a city that never ceases to amaze him.
We have the whole of Brazil mixed into a single city. Your eyes are always treated to beautiful scenery. It's a very romantic city. It's a loving city. Rio de Janeiro is a city where it's almost impossible to feel lonely. It's a city where people like to spend time together. The Carioca like to be with other people, so if ever you're visiting Rio de Janeiro, you'll certainly get to know the locals. People here like to chat and exchange ideas.
Lins, who's a Fluminense fan, adores his football, and he considers Brazil's 1970 side the team he enjoyed watching most. As for the current squad and their chances of emulating Pelé and co in 2014,
Brazilians are the kings of hope, and I'm no exception. I have a great belief that we will form a very strong national team that will win this World Cup. At the same time, there will always be doubts and question marks over whether we can actually do it.
With less than 1,000 days to go before the big kickoff, Brazil is starting to turn its attention towards 2014, and Linz is convinced that visitors to this part of South America will enjoy the experience.
I can say now with confidence that the people who come to Brazil to watch the World Cup will feel a little bit happier while they're here than if they were at home in their own country. I'm absolutely certain that Brazil will leave a positive, lasting impression on all of those people who come here to watch the tournament.